Jesus prayed that we would be one as he and the Father are one. And I see Love Inc. as an opportunity, as the model or the vision is of mobilizing, churches, to transform lives.
Thank you for being here, really, truly. So as we begin our Community Connections podcast here, sort of share with our audience who you are, where you have hailed from, and what was your motivation for coming?
Well, I am Marco George. I come from Savannah, Georgia. I currently serve as the executive pastor at the historic First African Baptist Church in Savannah. That is the oldest black church in North America.
I heard that.
Yeah, so a lot of rich history there. And I'm here because of Alan Jervey. Alan invited me up. We talked about me coming to visit, and he's arranged some speaking engagements for me. I'll be speaking Saturday at a community event, and then twice on Sunday at his church, Greenmont. I think it's Greenmont Community Church. Pastor Seth Hankey.
Yep.
I've spoken with him on the phone. We haven't met yet, but I'll meet him later today.
You're in for a treat.
Yeah.
Great man. And so tell us a little bit about sort of you seeing your purpose here in meeting with Love Inc.
Well, when Alan lived in Savannah briefly for a year and a half or so, and I believe you came down and did a presentation, and my senior pastor was there at that presentation, and then he had Alan come to our church and present to me and a few others, and me and Alan began, I saw that it was something we were doing as a church and trying to get other churches and local ministries involved in what we were doing, and so we saw Love Inc. as a potential vehicle, again, to be able to bring together churches and ministries to love on our community and to do that in the name of Christ.
Yeah.
So we got excited and began to work to that end until the Alan moved back up here, and of course COVID hit shortly after, so that kind of put the brakes on a little bit.
So what do you see as your role in the Savannah community where Love Inc. is?
I see myself possibly being a board member or definitely a volunteer. I love to teach, so I can see myself being a volunteer there. Maybe part of the prayer team, those type of things. And right now we're praying for someone that would come along and champion this thing and take up the mantle.
That's the word I heard you use when you were meeting with Bill Clifton earlier today.
Yeah, we need a Love Inc. champion in Savannah.
Yeah.
Somebody that has more time than me.
Well, and in all honesty, Marco, as you know already, the ministry of Love Inc. and the person who's going to champion it has to have the calling, the heart, the time.
Yeah.
It's not something that can be done by an individual within a church. It can't be done by a single church.
Exactly.
And I really admire the fact that you recognize that it's not you, or that you're not feeling called to it.
Well,
that's perfectly okay, isn't it?
Yeah, and I tried to be that person, and in the midst of that, we did get I think more than 6 churches of the 6 different denominations, and began that process.
Sure.
And those churches have even got skin in the game and made the financial commitment to begin the process. But it just began. I realized it was more than I could take on myself because of other ministry responsibilities, and so we just begin to pray that God would reveal that person. And of course, like I said earlier, with COVID, that's kind of brought everything to a halt for temporarily.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I can hear exactly, and I can empathize with that decision for you, because that's hard.
Yeah.
That's very hard. And knowing that you're called to ministry, but recognizing that you're not the one God's calling, being okay with that, and trusting that God will reveal who the person is. And then it sounds to me like you will be championing that person
Exactly.
in their role.
I'll be their biggest cheerleader.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I hear.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So that person will have a supportive team behind them from the get-go.
Well, and being a pastor, I'm connected to other pastors, so to help them rally the churches to get around the idea, and to come in and support them, and for those pastors to reach out throughout their congregations to get the other volunteers that are needed to be able to bring things together. I think that.
What a gift. That truly will be a gift to that person once God calls them and raises them up. To have that kind of support, it's not a backing from the get-go. Whew. That's awesome. Well done. So let's talk about your trip here. First, what were you anticipating to learn and glean, and what has actually transpired?
Well, I didn't have any expectations. Didn't know what I was coming to. I came. Alan is in control of.
I'm going to Virginia.
My itinerary. I came here just, I was coming as a guest speaker. Okay. Didn't know what Alan wanted me to even talk about, and I came here. I was like, I got 3 sermons to preach, and I came here with an idea for one. And last night God scrapped all of that. So I said, okay, Lord, you're in control. So hopefully by 2:00 tomorrow, we'll at least have an idea on one of those. But since this morning, I have learned a lot. Just being able to see the warehouse, the donation center, meeting with Ethan and going through what goes on in the warehouse, seeing how organized it is, and the whole process there. Meeting with Karen, with the intake and that process of being that first point of contact, right, and getting that information, and then meeting with Sharon, and understanding the clearinghouse, and through all of that. The thing that has jumped out at me is everybody's authenticity, their sincere love for Christ and their love for people, and that has just been an overarching, thing that I've seen, being there at the warehouse this morning. That everybody has a love for Christ. You said it earlier in the class. There's no denominational doctrine being pushed. Just people who love Christ and love people and see people as Christ saw them.
And whether that's someone a neighbor who has a need in the community, or a fellow volunteer, it doesn't make any difference.
Exactly. Just talking to some of the volunteers in the warehouse, they're them poking at each other and having fun together, working together. Just the whole environment was joyful. Didn't, no stress, no drama. Everybody seemed to get along, and having that singular focus in, hey, we're doing this in the name of Christ, and the love on our community at large. So that was awesome. Good to see and witness.
Thank you. That's good to hear. So, give me takeaway number 2.
I think just the organizational aspect, seeing how the operation, how efficient and effective the operation is, from meeting with Bill, who is the volunteer coordinator.
He's relational ministry. And so he oversees churches, church development and relationships, as well as volunteers.
Okay, yeah, and just seeing him with his paperwork and questionnaires for the volunteers, the partnership agreement with the churches, that organizational aspect. I mentioned Ethan earlier in the warehouse and how well organized that is. I'm very familiar with Breeze, and just found out from Karen and Sharon that you all just recently brought Breeze on. We use Breeze as our church management software, and switched over from Power Church to Breeze a couple years ago, and it's been a blessing to us, very user friendly. And so to see that move from just being paper, intake forms to online, being able to do that and seeing how efficient and how you all are, continuing to grow your ministry and work to operate more efficiently and effectively.
Well, we've been that way since day one, Marco.
Yeah, you weren't. Just like our church was.
That's
right.
right. It's definitely been a journey. That is for sure. And with wrong turns along the way, doing a U-turn, the whole bit. Thankfully, God's been the one controlling the GPS.
Yeah. Recalculating.
He's been recalculating. You got it. Oh, it's
Yeah.
awesome. And so thank you very much for just your seeing those different pieces. Because that's not necessarily evident to everybody who comes through and sees it. And thank you for recognizing it, because the intentionality is there. The heart is there, and one thing that I love about our team is one that you mentioned. We all love Jesus, and we all want to work in God's will. We recognize our will gets in the way, and we love each other enough to hold each other accountable so that we stay in God's will. And that's part of being a member of the Love Inc. family, and that's what how we refer to ourselves, is as a family. So, what do you see? What are your plans for the rest of the week? You mentioned some of the sermons and the speaking engagements.
Yeah, I get to go to dinner tonight with Pastor Seth Hankey. So we'll hang out a little bit and just talk and get to know one another. And there's a big event at some park tomorrow.
Gypsy Hill Park.
Gypsy Hill Park
In Staunton. 2 o'clock?
2 o'clock is
at the bandstand.
Yeah. And so I'll be speaker there. Have slight idea of what talk about, and I've gotten some of that just from today, just talking about service, and seeing that in action, people serving God and through the ministry of Love Inc. And then Sunday at Greenmont, we'll preach at both of their morning services there. And so that's it. And then sometime Sunday afternoon, we'll jump on the road and head back to Georgia.
Back down to Savannah.
Yeah.
So when you get back to Savannah, what do you see as something that you want to convey to other pastors or Pastor Thurman, your congregation, of your experience up here? And of course, it's not over yet, but thus far.
Well, just I think, again, the effectiveness and the efficiency of what Love Inc. is doing here. I think the clearinghouse, again, thing that jumps out at me is, of all the things Jesus could have prayed for, he prayed for unity for the church as a whole. We're very divided racially, ethnically, denominationally, in our personal preference over worship styles. Some churches are traditional, some are contemporary, musical preference, all of those things. Jesus prayed that we would be one as he and the Father are one. And I see Love Inc. as an opportunity, as the model or the vision is of mobilizing, churches, to transform lives,
And that vision of
that unification, in purpose. Again, loving our community as one body, as the body of Christ, not as any individual church, getting rid of our organizational egos, because everybody wants to build their kingdom. We love, and with our history, we love First African Baptist Church, but when we go in the community, we just want to be the body of Christ. Correct. We don't want, because somebody may have been hurt by a Baptist church, right. So we don't want that to keep them from having a relationship with Christ. And so, exactly. So that, I think that, is what I hope to convey, having experienced it firsthand.
So you mentioned earlier, Marco, that the seed sounds like it's already been planted for Loving to bloom one day in Savannah, and that you'll be right there with it. National Loving organization obviously will be there to support that movement. And what I want you to know is that your sister affiliate here in Virginia, in Fishersville, Virginia, is right there with you guys in prayer. And if you get on the phone and you say, Alan, Bill, can you come down?
Well, I'm going to tell you this, let not your heart be troubled. I will give you an excuse to come to Savannah, because we will be calling. And you got to bring Ethan. So when we get our warehouse space, you got to bring Ethan to set up shop, and then we're gonna steal Nolan away from you too, because we're gonna need somebody to do some video and some of that stuff,
Just give yourself patience. It takes time. This has been a treat. Thank you very much. I look forward to getting to know you more as the years go. And go Vols.
Anyway.